Hello and welcome to another Z.E.D video. This one is on zombie survival, like all of them are. And I figured we talk a little bit about, everyday carries, something you should do every day, which you do every day, but the idea of how you can improve upon that to be ready for anything up to a full-scale zombie outbreak. I talk a little bit about maps and why they're a good idea to have and how you can plan with them. And gave a little generic introduction type of video and things of that nature. And I pretty much was focusing on preparing, and that's what we've been doing, is to focus on preparing. Now I thought, because it's about surviving against zombies, I would do a very basic primer on how to deal with zombies, because the name of the game is survival, and in order to survive, you have to stay alive. And sometimes, in order to stay alive, you have to deal with confrontations with the zombies. It's never recommended to go out and seek zombies. You can quickly get overwhelmed. And I'll go over that in another video. But basically, we're not talking about zombie hunting. We're talking just about zombie survival. And sometimes that means you have to deal with a zombie. And the best way to deal with zombies is to just eliminate them outright. Now, some people think if you're running away, as long as you just get away from it, maybe break a leg, one of its legs, or some way incapacitated that way and get away, that is just as good. And in theory, that may be a little easier, especially if you're on the move in a panic-stricken situation. But at the same time, if the zombie is still able to move and still able to potentially be a zombie and go around, you haven't eliminated a threat to you. You may have to come double back that way. You may have to, it may just roam and become an obstacle yet again, the same zombie. So, really, the best thing to do is just eliminate it outright. That's what we recommend here. So, in order to do that, is you have to destroy the brain of a zombie. So pretty much heads only. That's why I'm holding the skull here for you. Anything else is just going to be a waste of ammunition and a waste of energy if you're doing melee type of combat. Now let's look at the head here. It's not so much just, if you go this way and they're gone. No, it's really about the brain specifically. So this is essentially a appropriate sized human skull replica, I guess you would call it. And you look at the brain case, and pretty much it comes down to here, wraps all the way around. Pretty much from the upper row of teeth, that's as low as I would recommend trying to go and hitting a zombie head on, for example, with a ranged weapon, or if you're aiming with a machete or a crowbar or a hammer or a bat, I wouldn't aim any lower than there. I would, that's my recommendation, because you can see how that kind of lines up with the bottom of the brain case. And you want to damage the brain, you want to hit the brain case. If you go too low, you can miss. Now, if you sever the spinal column right at the base of the head, that's just as good as just destroying the brain itself. But that's a thinner target. It's got a smaller, it's probably like that wide coming down, like but back farther. So decapitation is a little bit easier to do with a melee weapon, because as long as you hit somewhere over there hard enough, you pretty much eliminate the zombie. But for the goal of this video, we're talking just about the brain. Now, it is, and at the same time is not, a big target. It is a big target in the fact that it's, I would say, 90% of the head itself. When you look at a human head, where you hit it more straight on, for example, more often than not, you're going to hit brain as well. When you go hit hard enough and penetrate deep enough. And on the side, you're almost guaranteed to hit the brain. And on the back, obviously, that's all you're going to hit, is the brain, once you go through the skull. Now, you don't have to necessarily penetrate the skull. you can do just enough blunt force trauma to essentially scramble the brain, and that can work too. It's more physically and visually identifiable as a kill hit, basically, when you split the brain case open and see all the viscera and whatnot. But again, blunt force trauma enough to just brain shake, basically, but really just jumble the brain up can do it as well. But it's going to take sufficient blunt force trauma and multiple repeated strikes. So with that in mind, like I was saying before I got off on a little tangent, it's a big target in this fact that most of the head really has a brain somewhere, either behind the like the mouth, the upper part of the mouth, behind the nose, behind the eyes, or just, you know, because that's the rest of the head. And it's a small target in the fact that in relation to the rest of the body, it's a pretty small target. Like, I'm pretty much palming this skull in my hand right now, and while close, it can become an easy target. If you have something like this yourself, or you find the average dimensions of a human skull, make a circle of that dimension, approximately, or an oval, I should say, to make it more in line, and you take that, you know, color it in, checker it, whatever you want to do. Take that piece of paper, that target, if you will, put it 10 feet out, 20 feet out, 50 feet out, you know, 100 yards out, whatever, and you quickly see how small this target gets, how complicated it can be to hit. And I know, if you haven't trained to hit a target that size, can you do it? Can I do it? Sure, you probably could, but we're doing it in a calm situation. There's no pressure, and in a panic-stricken situation, this becomes a pretty hard target to hit. So keep that in mind. When you're aiming for the head, the brain is a pretty big target. You can see that pretty much. That's the only thing that's not brain. Pretty much you have to go right up to like here, and the rest is all brain. So the idea is to get, if you're doing a ranged weapon like a bullet, to take your bullet and put it somewhere where it can get to the brain. Obviously by shooting it, not throwing it or holding it at it. If you're doing a melee weapon, I would again recommend somewhere up really around here or on the sides. Side hits and rear hits are your best bet with melee weapons, because there's no obstruction really. Like here, you have to kind of break through the nose area and the cheekbones and everything to get into the brain. Now, of course, I can remember that blunt force trauma, that shock to the brain could help with your case of dropping a zombie, but you really want to cut into and damage the brain matter itself. So a side hit or a rear hit can do that with the least obstruction, because there's nothing here. Front end, it can be a little bit, I don't want to say it's harder in terms of density of bone or whatever, but just because you have a bit of face in the way of the brain. So that's just the basics of how to deal with the zombies. The headshots is the only thing that matters. So really, if you think about it on a ballistic level, it's not so much the power of the bullet, the power of the bullet type, like I should say, it's not so much the power of the caliber, that's a better way of saying it, and it's not so much what type of bullet you're using, hollow point, whatever, but it's more shot placement. Place the shot somewhere here, and it's pretty much going to do the job, regardless of caliber or bullet type, as long as you're within the effective range of the bullet you're using. And with melee weapons, it just comes down to, can you bring yourself to hit something that looks like a human in the head hard enough to drop them like that? If you can, how long can you keep that up? Can you do that with the tool you have at hand? For example, a beer bottle is probably going to shatter on the first really good hit. Maybe you get 2 out of it if you're lucky. But more often than not, it's going to shatter on the first hit and leaving you pretty much useless, even if it did do the job of dropping one, for example. If you have a shovel, a crowbar, whatever, how can you best make use of that? And remember, we're looking at one zombie skull here. Well, one skull. It's not a zombie skull. It's not even real. It's plastic. But we're looking at one skull here. More often than not, in a zombie survival situation, you're not going to encounter that lone zombie here or there. If you do, and you make some noise, you can quickly attract stragglers that may be around the corner or hiding behind a bush. Not really hiding, but standing behind a bush because they're just randomly looking around. But it's very rare to encounter that one straggler. So, with melee, you have to look at this and realize it's probably going to be 10, 15, even as little as 5 or whatever, others around. Maybe directly behind it, maybe somewhere behind you that you haven't noticed. And you have to keep in mind, can you do the job in melee repeatedly? Will you have the energy? Will the weapon hold up? Will the weapon allow for it to do repeatedly and quickly? And that'll be its own video in the future as well. And again, with range, you have to factor in, can you make the shot? Is it too far for your capability or too far for the weapon per se? And pretty much with range weapons, it's a little bit easier because you have the power to pretty much penetrate for the most part. But just wanted to give you a little visual representation of the target that really matters. Now remember, I'm not saying go out and fight the zombie horde. What I'm saying is, in the event of a zombie outbreak, when you're trying to survive, and with your family or friends or random strangers are trying to band together and survive, chances are you're going to run into one of these. It's pretty much not a chance, it's, I want to say, a guarantee, no matter how much you try not to. So having the knowledge at your disposal is what you need, and it can make all the difference in survival. So remember to prepare. It's never too late to prepare for the zombie outbreak. And until next time, stay safe and take care.